Hello again, gamers. Welcome back for another episode of Grokking Twilight Imperium. I'm the board game captain, and today I'm going to be showing you how to grok the Vuil'Raith Cabal. Now, I want to start by giving a big shout out to one of my viewers, Shugenja, for requesting I cover the Vuil'Raith Cabal in an episode of Grokking Twilight Imperium. So thank you, Shugenja, for the request. Before I get started, I do want to say, check out my links in the description of this video down below. There you can find links to my website, boardgamecaptain.com, as well as my Patreon. If you're in a position to and would like to help out the channel, you can join my Patreon down there. And also, if you'd like to get yourself some cool gamer gear, shirts and mugs, etc., there's a link to my Teespring store where you can buy Board Game Captain merchandise. So, without any further ado, we're going to dive into the Vuil'Raith Cabal. So the Vuil'Raith Cabal are one of the factions that was introduced in the new Prophecy of Kings expansion for Twilight Imperium 4th edition. These are a brand new faction for 4th edition, obviously, and they are a interesting one, very different. They do have some abilities that remind me a little bit of the Necrovirus, but the storyline of them very much seems to be that they are creatures from a dimension of chaos that were accidentally unleashed on this universe through a tear in space-time that was created by the Mayhax gene sorcerers when they were trying to when they were tearing a big hole to be able to move their homeworld into the middle of the galaxy so they could fight over control of the galaxy once more. They accidentally unleashed the Vuil'Raith Cabal upon the galaxy. Now, the Vuil'Raith Cabal are creatures of countless forms with living ships that eat and absorb their enemies and are just, come pouring through these tears in reality from a chaotic dimension that can loosely be described as hell. So you can think of these guys as being inspired maybe by the Chaos Realm demons from the Warhammer 40,000 universe, as well as possibly the demonic entities from the movie of Event Horizon, which is one of my favorite horror movies, favorite sci-fi horror movies of all time. And these guys very much feel like they are based on that sort of theme. Creatures from a alternate reality, another dimension that can loosely be described as hell. So these are kind of sort of demons with living demonic ships that are coming in and devouring everything, reshaping things, and preparing to conquer the universe. So now these guys play very aggressively, as something that could loosely be described as demons should. And they're very ferocious and very interesting, and in my opinion are actually immediately upon their release a top tier faction. These guys are incredibly competitive. So let's jump into it. Let's see what you get to start with the Vuil'Raith Cabal and what they can do and what they should work towards. So to start with, you get the planet of Acheron. Now, Acheron is the world that was first torn asunder with the very first of the gravity rifts, the tears in reality, where they come pouring out of. It is a world that has 4 resources but 0 influence. So already this is setting an interesting standard for them. You're starting with a large amount of resources. 4 is definitely above average. Very good. However, you start with no influence, so they're not going to be really strong politically, and this is kind of what you should be expecting from the Vuil'Raith Cabal in general. They're going to have a lot of resources to be able to make a lot of ships, and they're going to have tricks to be able to make even more. But they're not going to be big on the political side. They might do a little, but I mean, they're not as politically cut off as, say, the Necrovirus. But they don't really lean that way. Okay, so now what about their starting ships and starting units and starting tech? So, on Acheron, you get to start with a space dock like everyone does. Their space dock comes with a gravity rift. They have gravity rift tokens that they put underneath their space docks. I'll explain why that is in a little bit when I start talking about the things that are different between other factions and them. You start with a dreadnought. You start with a cruiser, you start with a carrier, and then you start with 3 fighters and 3 ground troops. This is a very decent starting fleet. You have the ability to split up and colonize 2 systems right from the get-go, plus a carrier, plus having 3 fighters and 3 ground troops is an above average number of fighters and ground troops to start with, so that's pretty decent. All of it is really cool. It is a really, really decent starting fleet. Now, their starting technology that they get is the self-assembly routines. It is a red tech that normally requires you to already have 1 red tech to be able to play, but they start with it. And after 1 or more of your units use production, you may exhaust this card to place 1 mech from your reinforcements on a planet you control in that system. And, as a secondary ability, after 1 of your mechs is destroyed, gain 1 trade good. So, you're going to get free mechs every time you're producing. This is in addition to your normal production, so it doesn't count towards your production unit. That's pretty awesome. You don't have to pay for it, and it doesn't count towards your production unit. Once per round, you're going to get to exhaust this card to get a free mech when you're producing. Great. Mechs are good. Mechs are always good. I'm going to get into why their mech is specifically good in a minute, but mechs are always good for every faction, so that's a good thing. Now, the next thing is, anytime your mechs get destroyed, you're going to get a trade good, which of course then you can spend on buying more mechs or more other things. So yeah, this is a great tech to start with. Really fantastic starting tech, especially for them, but I'll get into that in a minute when I get down to their mechs. So now let's talk about their abilities and the things that are different about them. So the Vuil'Raith Cabal start with 3 abilities on their faction sheet, which are Devour, Amalgamation, and Rift Meld. And all 3 of these work completely synergistically with each other. Specifically, Amalgamation and Rift Meld work with Devour. So Devour says, capture your opponent's non-structure units that are destroyed during combat. So, your opponent in the combat, any units you destroy that are not structures, therefore not space stocks, not PDSs, but everything else, you get to capture. Now, capture is a new rule from Prophecy of Kings, and the way it works is you take their units and you put them on your sheet here, and you can give them back as part of a deal, as part of an arrangement, or you can give them back as part of an ability, and that's really what the Vuil'Raith Cabal are going to do, because their other 2 abilities key right into this. Now, when you capture your opponent's units, if you give them back as part of an ability or part of a deal, they just put them back in the reserves. They don't get them back out on the mat or anything. They don't come back on into a specific system. They just go back into their pile of reserve ships. So the other abilities that key into Devour are Amalgamation. When you produce a unit, you may return 1 captured unit of that type to produce that unit without spending resources. This is awesome. So when you're doing production, you're going to start getting free ships as long as you've destroyed ships. Or it says units. So you could do that with mechs. You could do it with ground troops, whatever it might be. But you're going to get free units as long as you've destroyed and captured units first. While you have them captured, your opponent can't build them. So some things you might actually want to hold on to capture, like War Suns or flagships, but at some point you may want to build your own War Sun or flagship for free, and therefore you give it back to them, that goes back in their reserves, and you get a free War Sun or flagship. It'll still count towards the production limit of that particular system, but you don't have to pay the resources for it, and that's amazing. Now the next ability is Rift Meld, and this is even more amazing in my personal opinion. So when you research a unit upgrade technology, you may return 1 captured unit of that type to ignore all of the technology prerequisites. All of the technology prerequisites. So this can be a truly amazing ability, because with Rift Meld, if you have captured some ships, you capture some cruisers and such, you can return them to be able to get the upgraded version of the cruiser, the upgraded version of the dreadnought, the upgraded version of the destroyer, the fighters, whatever it might be. And if you're playing against certain players, there are even better options. For instance, if you are playing against an Embers player and you make a rush on them and take out that starting War Sun, you can get the War Sun tech early, which is, yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, because that is a unit upgrade. It's a unit upgrade. You don't start with the ability to make War Suns, but it counts as a unit upgrade card. Yeah, this ability is phenomenal. It's going to help you have the more upgraded units on the field, and therefore use those more upgraded units to win battles and capture ships. And that is Awesome. So next, I want to talk about some specific units that are unique to the Vuil'Raith Cabal versus other factions. So the first unit that is unique to them is their version of the Space Dock. Instead of a Space Dock, they have the Dimensional Tear 1. Now, the Dimensional Tear 1, their version of the Space Dock, it comes with production of 5 automatically. So the production is not linked to the type of planet you put it on. You can put it on any planet. It's always going to have production 5. And it says this system is a gravity rift. Your ships do not roll for this gravity rift. Place a dimensional tear token. They come with a bunch of these dimensional tear tokens. Place a dimensional tear token beneath this unit as a reminder, and up to 6 fighters in the system do not count against your ship's capacity. So all right, this is awesome. So basically, you can have 6 fighters in this system, just buzzing about, versus the 3 that normal space docks have. So you can build a bunch of fighters in here to help defend the dimensional tear. In addition, having a production of 5 regardless of size of the planet it's on is really nice. And then also the fact that you get a gravity rift that doesn't affect you negatively, so you get the positive benefits of it. And to remind you, positive benefits of a gravity rift is if you're flying out of or through a system with a gravity rift, you get to add +1 to your movement, so you can get a little further. So it actually gives you a nice boost from your starting system to spread out there and colonize planets, which is really good. But the negative is that when you are flying through or out of a system with a gravity rift, normally you have to roll a die. And on a 1 through 3, your ship is destroyed. So this will still happen to your opponents, but you don't need to roll for the gravity rifts that are underneath your own dimensional tears, your version of the space dock. So that is pretty awesome. It means that if your opponent decides to attack you, and if they fail, there's going to be a big negative when they try to retreat out of the system. They might lose even more ships. So there is a danger there. They don't want to attack you unless they're sure they're going to be able to take out your fleet and your space dock, because otherwise they're going to be in trouble. So this is a really, really, really cool version of the Dimensional Tear. Now, really cool version of the space dock. So their flagship is the Terror Between. It is a very cool flagship. I will explain why. The flagship for the Vuil'Raith Cabal, the Terror Between, it has an 8 cost, pretty standard for flagships. 2 attacks at a 5, so it's got the same comic capability of 2 dreadnoughts, quite good. It has move 1, pretty normal. Capacity 3, pretty normal. It gets a bombardment 5, not normal, not common amongst flagships. Having bombardment is pretty good. Has sustained damage. All the flagships have sustained damage. And then its ability, its main ability. Capture all other non-structure units that are destroyed in this system, including your own. This is fantastic. So you're going to want to get this flagship out pretty quick and get it to the front line. Whatever fleet you're going to want to use to do all your attacking, this is going to be in it, because you're going to get to not just capture opponents, but capture your own. You're going to get those ships back for free. And that is really, really good. It's kind of sad it doesn't work on itself. It does say other non-structure units, but still really awesome. This is going to make that fleet, even if it gets almost completely wiped out, they'll all be coming back for free cost-wise very shortly. So really, really good ability. Now, next I want to talk about the abilities of the Agent, Commander, Hero, and Mech. So the Agent, the ability you start with of the 3 character cards, is the Stillness of the Stars, Oppressive Silence. After another player replenishes commodities, you may exhaust this card to convert their commodities to trade goods and capture 1 unit of their reinforcements that has a cost equal to or lower than their commodity value. So you give someone else a benefit by turning their commodities into trade goods. That's really nice. That's cool for them. But for you get to then capture 1 of their ships. And now, the average faction has a commodity value of 3, so that's pretty decent. With that, you could get a carrier for free, carrier that you could capture that later you could build for free, or then upgrade your carrier. You could get a cruiser. Even lower end commodity factions like the Vuil'Raith themselves, who only have a commodity of 2, would allow you to get a cruiser or a destroyer or fighter, something like that you could then upgrade. Get there are higher amounts of commodities that have 4 or even 6, like the Emirates of Hakan have commodities of 6, and they could allow you to upgrade, get the capture a dreadnought and either build a dreadnought for free later or upgrade your dreadnoughts. Really awesome to have the stillness of stars, oppressive silence, and the way that it will work with the amalgamation and rift meld abilities, allowing you to capture ships that aren't even on the board yet, so you can use these abilities early on to either build more ships for free or to be able to upgrade your ships without having the prerequisites, which is awesome. Now, the next character is the commander. He is that which molds flesh, grisly abomination. Now, he is triggered when you have units in 3 gravity rifts. Now, keeping in mind that each one of your space docks creates a gravity rift, this is going to be real easy. If you throw a gravity rift on your side of the board and build a second space dock, you can get this guy pretty frickin' early. On the other hand, if you don't get a gravity rift in your starting hand, just building 3 space docks eventually will let you get him out, and that's not really that hard and will only be postponed a short amount of time. So when you produce fighter or infantry units, up to 2 of those units do not count against your production limit. So now your productions, not only are you getting units without spending their cost because you had captured them, you also get to throw out a couple of fighters or ground troops without it counting against your production limit, and they're dirt cheap, so you don't have to have captured them to get them for free. It's 1 resource for 2 fighters or 2 ground troops. This is really awesome, especially since, remember, every one of the areas with the gravity rifts with your space docks, your dimensional tears, can have up to 6 fighters in them that don't count against capacity or fleet limits. So yeah, this is really, really awesome ability. The final ability is it feeds on Carrion, Twisted Horror, and then the ability is Event Horizon, which is obviously a little tongue-in-cheek reference to the movie. That definitely is one of the areas they took inspiration from to make this faction. I love that they put that in there. And this ability is action. Each other player rolls a die for each non-fighter ship that are in or adjacent to a system that contains a dimensional tear. Now, don't forget, all your space docks put out dimensional tears. On a 1 through 3, you capture that unit. If this causes a player's ground forces or fighters to be removed, also capture those units. So this can be a fantastic one, especially like once you capture Mechatol Rex. And with the kind of combat capabilities you have, you're probably going to capture Mechatol Rex at some point. You build a space dock there, so you get a gravity rift. And then you trigger this, you're going to have big fleets all around you next to Mechatol Rex. And you're going to like wipe out a third of each of those fleets and capture those ships, so that very shortly thereafter, you're going to be bringing a bunch of them back into various fleets on the board for free without having to pay for them. Really awesome ability. It takes a little bit to get it going because you have to do first the capture, then the builds, but it's going to be really great. It's going to wind up really reinforcing your military forces on the board, which is awesome. Now, the last card over here is the mech. Now, remember, you start out with self-assembly routines, which means from the very beginning of the game, when you were doing build actions, you're going to get a free mech once per round. Now, why are the mechs good? Why are they important? Why are they very important for the strategies of the Vuil'Raith Cabal? Well, they're a pretty standard mech. 2 cost, 6 combat, sustained damage, except when it comes to their ability. Their ability is phenomenal. When your infantry on this planet are destroyed, place them on your faction sheet. Those units are captured. Once you have a mech in with a bunch of infantry in any particular group, as long as the mech doesn't die, those dead infantry are going to become captured and therefore get to come back without paying for them for free. And also, don't forget, as long as you have the commander out, you get to do 2 of them without it counting against your production in a particular system. So again, that all synergizes together and is really amazing. These guys have one of the largest amounts of synergies of any faction I've ever seen, which is so cool. Okay, So continuing on, we're going to discuss technologies. We're going to talk about the faction-specific technologies and what technologies I would recommend. Now, being that you have the Rift Meld ability where you're going to be able to get unit upgrades and you're going to want to upgrade just about all your types of units at some point, and you can get these unit upgrades for free, you're going to focus in a lot of your tech is going to be on unit upgrades. But that being said, there are a couple specific faction technologies here. The two that they have for them, you're going to really want those, and there are a few others that you might want that might work well with you on occasions when you are not upgrading your units. So what are they? So first off, I'm going to start off with one of the faction techs, and that is Vortex. Now, Vortex is a red technology. It requires you to have one red tech, which you start with, because you start with the self-assembly routines. It is an action. Exhaust this card to choose another player's non-structured unit in a system that is adjacent to one or more of your space docks. Capture one unit of that type from that player's reinforcements. So once you get those space docks out there in the middle of the board, maybe even on Mechatol Rex, this is a once per turn. You're going to get to be like, okay, I'm going to capture one of your dreadnoughts. Okay, I'm going to capture one of your war sons. And that's freaking amazing. This is so good, especially because how it continues to synergize with all of their other abilities. Capture a war son. Play a war son back on your side of the board. Later when you're doing a production, you can discard that war son, giving it back to them, and therefore get one for free. Or if you haven't gotten the war sons yet, you can do it when doing the technology card upgrade to get the unit upgrade for the war son, so that then in the future you can play war sons. The Vortex is fantastic. Really, really good card. Okay, so now the other faction-specific card is the upgrade to the Dimensional Tear. It is the Dimensional Tear 2, but it has a prerequisite of 2 yellow text. So I'm gonna talk about this one a little later, because what I'm gonna do first is talk about what other generic texts I think might be good ones that you might want to get instead of just going for unit upgrades all the time, though you are going to try to get a lot of those unit upgrades. So first off, I have one other red tech I want to recommend, which is the AI development algorithms. Now, the reason I like this one for the Vuil'Raith Cabal, it says, when you research a unit upgrade technology, you may exhaust this card to ignore any one prerequisite. That's pretty cool. That could help you with some of the others that you might want to get. There are plenty of other general upgrades that are good for everybody. That are also good for the Vuil'Raith Cabal that I'm not going to talk about. And this could help you with one of those. But the real reason I'm saying this is a good one for the Vuil'Raith Cabal is for its second ability, which is when one or more of your units use production, you may exhaust this card to reduce the combined cost of produced units by the number of unit upgrade technologies that you own. This is going to be crazy. You're going to have tons of unit grade upgrade technologies. So let's say you've got 3 unit upgrade technologies, and let's say you've got 2 captured ships, and let's say you get to build 3 units in this particular. You can always build 5 units in any one of the Dimensional Tear ones. So you're building your 5 units, and your first 2 are free because you had 2 captured ships, and then you have 3 reduced costs. So you can build right off the bat. You can build a carrier for free, and you've still got 2 more units you can produce, and you haven't even spent any money yet. This can be fantastic. Really, really good. Okay, so now I want to talk about the one blue I recommend. The one blue tech that I really recommend, it requires you to already have a blue, but if you've already got the AI development algorithm, you could ignore that requirement, or else you could get, one of the regular blues on your way to getting this. But Sling Relay. Action. Exhaust this card, produce 1 ship in any system that contains one of your space docks. Now this is great. You don't activate the system, you just produce the ship, and this is a great way to get those captured ships back out on the mat without it, costing you activating that system, so you can immediately use that ship again. Sling Relay is going to be really good with the Vuil'Raith Cabal. Now I want to talk about some yellow techs, because you need a couple of yellow techs to get the Dimensional Tear 2. So first off, Sarween Tools. Sarween Tools is amazing for every faction. It's even more amazing for the Vuil'Raith Cabal because of their amazing production abilities. But when 1 or more of your units use production, reduce the combined cost of the production by 1. I mean, you're going to have 5 production value in every system with with one of your Dimensional Tears. You want to be able to make the most of that 5 production. Reducing it with these multiple cards plus getting the free guys, you're going to get a ton of stuff out every time you produce. It's going to be really awesome. Next, we have the Scandling Drone Network. When you activate a system, you may explore one planet in that system that contains one or more units. Now, this one, I'm just recommending so you can get enough to get the third tech, but you could ignore this if you've gotten the AI development algorithm to just be able to ignore the second yellow required to be able to get the Dimensional Tear 2 or this other tech that I'm going to be talking about. Either one of those, this could be ignored, but this is one that's good for everybody. I just threw it in there for if you want to be able to get two, if you haven't gotten the AI development algorithm yet, and you want to be able to get 2 yellows to qualify for getting Dimensional Tear. Now, before I talk about Dimensional Tear, I do want to talk about 2 requirement yellow tech that I do highly recommend for the Vuil'Raith Cabal, and that is the Transit Diodes. You may exhaust this card at the start of your turn during the action phase, remove up to 4 of your ground forces from the game board, and place them on 1 or more planets you control. So ships are going to be coming back. If you've lost carriers, they'll come back and they can move troops, but if you hadn't lost carriers and you lost tons of ground troops somewhere, this is a good way to get those ground troops right back to the front line. It's going to be highly useful for the Vuil'Raith Cabal. Now, the last tech I want to talk about is the other of their faction techs. Is the other unit upgrade for the Dimensional Tear 1, Dimensional Tear 2. So, you still have the ability that this system is a gravity rift, and your ships don't have to roll for it. You upgrade the capacity of fighters from 6 to 12 fighters, and you upgrade the production from 5 to 7. You're going to want this. You're going to want to be able to produce 7 ships, getting a bunch of them for free, getting a bunch of them just brought back out because of all the captured ships you've gotten. Dimensional Tear 2 is awesome. Production 7 is huge. So yeah, all these techs are highly worthwhile. So next, I want to talk about what strategy cards are you going to want to go for. So now, first, I'm a little torn in regard to what should be your first card you go for, but I'm going to lean towards technology for these guys. And the reason is because of getting the 1 free research of technology, and then the possibility of spending 6 resources to research an additional technology. You could possibly wind up with a few more resources if you do a commodities trade, maybe with the Emirates Khan player or something. You might get a couple more resources along with the 4 starting resources from your starting planet to even research 2 techs. And the great thing is, with your other abilities to be able to steal ships, fairly early on, you're going to want to be able to use this to research a regular tech and a upgrade of a ship. I would do an upgrade of the ship first, because you can, again, don't forget, after another player replenishes their commodities, you can exhaust your agent to steal one of their ships from their reserves. So as long as someone else takes trade, you can do that. You're going to steal a ship, and then you're going to use the technology to get the upgrade of that ship. Even if it's a smaller ship like a cruiser, getting the upgrade of the cruiser is great because it ups its movement from 2 to 3, it upgrades its combat, and it actually gets 1 capacity, which is awesome. So then the cruiser you've already gone out there, you can start using that to colonize even more planets, which is really fantastic. So that's a good reason to want to get the technology. And then if you're able to get enough resources, maybe because of some trades you do after someone plays the trade card, you might even be able to get a second technology, in which case, at that point, you probably won't be able to get another unit upgrade. You can get one of the basic techs, though. You could get your Vortex tech, you could get the AI development algorithms, or you could get the Sarween tools. All of these would be really good. Now, if you are unable to get technology, or if you're playing a 3-player game and are able to go for a second one, what would I recommend? So second, I would say Warfare is really good. You do want to get Warfare because it would allow you to colonize more quickly. These guys do start with 3 ground troops and a carrier and a dreadnought, so you can go out and colonize a single planet system and a 2-planet system. With Warfare, you can colonize another 2-planet system. That is really awesome. In addition, another possible one might be trade, so you can make sure to give someone, let them replenish their commodities for free, and then do the ability of turning their commodities to trade goods to steal one of their ships. Another really great option. Also, eventually, maybe not in the first round, but once you're getting out there and you're getting planets further closer to Mechatol Rex, you're going to want to take construction so you can get some more dimensional tears out there, especially ones right up on the front lines, which will work really well with your abilities. Then, of course, there are plenty of others that you may want to get, like Imperial when you need to get points, Leadership when you need to get lots of the tactical action tokens, etc. But like for them, you're probably going to avoid politics and diplomacy for the most part, and really focus in on the other various strategy cards. Now, in order to unlock your hero, what secret objectives do I recommend you searching for, trying to get? Which ones are going to work really well with the Vuil'Raith Cabal? So they've got a lot that can work well for them, but these are ones that I've picked out that I think would be like really great to get your hands on fairly early if you can, especially doing the secondary ability of the Imperial card. So mechanize the military. Have one mech each on 4 planets. So you start with self-assembly routines. You're going to get mechs out, and you're going to get them out easily. So having one mech on 4 planets is going to be an easy one to fulfill. Next, we have learn the secrets of the cosmos. Have 1 or more ships in 3 systems that each are adjacent to an anomaly. You get to have an anomaly everywhere you build a space dock because you get a gravity rift in that system. This is going to be easy. It's basically a gimme. Next, Brave the Void. Win a combat in an anomaly. Well, if anyone decides to attack one of your space docks, you're going to get a chance to do that. Next, we have Fuel the War Machine. Have 3 space docks on the game board. You're going to want to get your space docks out. So this is another one that's going to be not a gimme, but you're going to be working towards it anyway. And then last one, Hoard Raw Materials. Control planets that have a combined resource value of at least 12. You start with a planet with a resource value of 4. So this is, you're already a third of the way there. It's not going to be a gimme, but it's going to be one that you can very easily work towards. These are all ones that are going to be really good for the Vuil'Raith Cabal for unlocking their hero ability, which is a really, really awesome hero ability. So what are you going to want to do? You're going to want to go out there. You're going to want to colonize fairly quickly. You're going to want to make a beeline for the center of the board, moving some of your ships faster than normal just to colonize and get really close to Mechatol Rex. You're going to want to build some space docks in key positions where your opponents are going to be next to you and worry about attacking you because of how if they fail, they will lose ships trying to retreat back out of the system because of the fact that there are dimensional tears. Which count as gravity rifts, and they have a 1/3 chance of losing any ship that leaves the system. You're going to want to fight as often as possible anywhere you think you can win. You're going to want to get the technologies that make your ships better, as well as the technologies that further improve your abilities in the chain of abilities that allow you to, for free, get your ships back. You're going to want to get your flagship out. He allows you to get your own ships back. Any ships you destroy of your opponents, you're going to get back, and then you're going to get free back when you do your production. These guys are devious, destructive, vicious. They are definitely going to be a fun faction to play, and a scary faction to play against. I think that you will enjoy playing the Vuil'Raith Cabal. So if you have any comments, questions, or concerns on the Vuil'Raith Cabal, maybe on anything that I missed that you think is really important to the strategy of playing the Vuil'Raith Cabal, feel free to comment down below. And if you enjoyed this episode of Grokking Twilight Imperium and you'd like to see me do more like it, be sure to give it a like, share it on all forms of social media. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with K on YouTube. And if you have any requests for what factions you think I should cover next, feel free to put them in the comments down below. And until next time, game on.